Additional aids and services are available to individuals with disabilities. To make such a request, please contact us by email, by clicking the Help tab in the PD portal, or at pdportal@tamu.edu, by phone, including Relay Texas at 1-800-441-7323, or in writing to Train PD, PD Portal Support, 4477 TAMU, College Station, Texas 77843. Both a transcript and accessible document of the content presented in this webinar can be found as resources in the course description. Click on the blue links under Course Resources in the description. When a link is clicked, a new browser window will open.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be hosting this month's edition of Teacher Tuesday. The topic of the day is really strategic planning. That's always a good thing for us to be talking about here, and I love talking about it. So I want to kind of share some things with you today, and really translating that strategic, or that word strategy, really comes from the Greek language. And it loosely translated, it really means a plan that comes from the office of the general or from leadership. So my goal today is to kind of give you guys a look at how we do some of the strategic planning here at the Texas Workforce Commission for Adult Education and Literacy. I always like to be very transparent with some of the decisions that we make here at the agency, and really ultimately how those decisions and how those opportunities get reflected in your local programs and your local communities. All of our strategic planning that we do is really a way to keep things very publicized, right? So we're being very transparent about some of the key objectives that we have that we feel like are important for Texas, and defining what some of those really actionable items are related to those objectives. And that's how you really see the rubber hit the road at the local level, is when we start getting into those more actionable items and things that we're really putting on our plate as to-dos. So the first thing I want to cover is just the objectives. What is the purpose of our AEL Advisory Committee, and what the most recent recommendations are that they have made to the commission? We're going to learn how the AEL Strategic Plan outlines our state goals and objectives. Identify a state goal that really resonates with you, and then create some action items to support the achievement of that goal. And then really discover how to create your own strategic plan with a mission, a vision, and objectives. So regardless of whether you're an instructor, an administrator, or coordinator, I think it's always nice to sit back and kind of say, you know, this year, what do I hope to accomplish? What is my core mission? What is my vision for my class, for my program, for my specific job duties? So we'll learn a little bit more about that. The first thing I want to talk about is our AEL Advisory Committee. You know, we have things here at the state that oftentimes I think are seen as kind of compliance type things, right? But our AEL Advisory Committee plays a crucial role for us at the state, and they play a crucial role for you in the field. So I want to give a little bit of a spotlight to some of the work that they do, and really what is the purpose of our advisory committee. So a little bit about the background. We have Texas Labor Code, and I've given you the actual rule language and connectivity, so you can actually go in and you can pull this up on your own. But in the two different places in our rules here in Texas, it requires that the Texas Workforce Commission establish an Adult Education and Literacy Advisory Committee. There's a couple of key things that the committee must sort of contain. One, it can't be composed of any more than 9 members. So 9 members is the max. We can have less than that, but we can't have more than that. It has to include at least one representative of the business community, which is our employer community, and include one representative from a local workforce development board. So those are the hard and fast requirements of our advisory committee. Now, in terms of our current members, again, can't have any more than 9. We currently have 5 that are in place, and most of them are new to their duties on the advisory committee, with the exception of Diana. Currently, we have Brenda Schofield, who's an actual AEL provider out with Region 5 ESC in Beaumont. We have Steve Banta, who is an executive director of Literacy Texas. Some of you may be very familiar with Steve and his work in the nonprofit field. We have Diana Contreras. She is our employer representative. So remember, going back and saying we have to have at least one business representative on our advisory committee. And right now, Diana is fulfilling that role. She's the senior director for operational effectiveness for Dollar General, and she controls the supply line and the supply chain for Dollar General. That's a big task, but she brings really, really great insight to the advisory committee because she's got so much great depth on looking at incumbent workers and how do you train incumbent workers and create pathways within a large employer and organizational structure. And then Janine Maldonado serves currently, she's kind of a hybrid. So she's an AEL provider, but she's also doing our board representative out of Workforce Solutions, Tarrant County. And then Rita Hernandez is with a career school. She's from Cameron County Education Initiative. You can kind of see a couple of things here when you're looking at members and sort of where they're from. We've got things plotted out to where we kind of try to do a couple of things. One is we want representation from across the state, right? Texas is a very broad state. We have a lot of different regional things that happen, and we want to make sure that we have good representation on our committee of individuals from all the different regions in Texas. So these are our current committee members. Many of them may be on the call today, actually joining us, and we really are appreciative of everything and all the experience that they bring to the table. And it's much needed. So the committee is charged with advising the Texas Workforce Commission on several key things. The first bullet here is the development of policies and program priorities supporting the development of an educated and skilled workforce. Well, what does that really mean? What it really means, and it's the reason why we have to have a board representative and an employer representative, so that really we're looking at the services that we're providing in the field through adult education as being a pipeline for a skilled workforce here in Texas. So not everybody's going to go through K through 12 and go straight out of high school and secondary education and straight into post-secondary education and get that credential and get that degree and go on and be a part of a skilled workforce in a high targeted demand industry here in Texas. Many folks are going to stop out of secondary education and may stay stopped out for many years before they try to reconnect back to post-secondary education. And then they find out that, hey, I don't know if I have the skills that I need to do well here. So really that's part of what our advisory committee really does as well, is kind of helps us to develop policies and priorities for how do we continue to develop an educated and skilled workforce, regardless of where they are right now. The second one is the development of a statewide curriculum guidelines and standards for the services and the instruction that ultimately is happening in the field. And we want to see that there's a balance there between education, reading, writing, math, language, and workplace skills, which is really developing individuals for the workforce. And it's all the soft skills that employers find so valuable, like critical thinking skills, like communication, problem solving, those types of things. And you guys may see some of this come out in initiatives that we've had going back all the way to 2018 or 2016 with our content standards. It sort of evolves, right? Every couple of years, we go in and we add something else to it. And sometimes that's because we have recommendations and discussions coming out of our advisory committees that are like, hey, we really need to add this specific thing in there, or, oh, hey, we really need to do more of this. The third bullet is the development of strategy for improving student transition to post-secondary education and career and technical training. So how do we move students, and how do we in adult education really help to bridge students to post-secondary education? The days of old where students kind of came into our program, we gave them a pre-test, we gave them a post-test, we improved their math, their reading, and their language, but we weren't maybe so focused on what's next. Right now, the what's next happens at the beginning of the conversations to students, because we have to really understand what is the goal of the student and why are they coming to us in the first place. So that may be a conversation that our advisory committee members kind of see themselves tackling. The fourth one is a centralized system for collecting and tracking comprehensive data on adult basic education and literacy performance outcomes. I'm going to be very honest and say this has probably been the one thing that I feel like we have struggled with the most here in Texas and with our tri-agency data sharing and things like that. The last one is the exploration of potential partnerships with entities in the nonprofit business communities and other entities to improve statewide literacy programs. Well, what does that mean? Well, how do we better connect with all the nonprofit and different organizations within Texas who may be providing AEL service, but they're not funded through TWC? You guys know this, there's lots of competition out there. We do not own the monopoly on AEL services in Texas. There's lots of GED preparation programs out there. There's lots of language programs out there. So how do we really work more closely with other organizations in our communities to best serve the student? Because maybe we're not always the entity that's going to best serve that individual. All of the funding that we have coming out of TWC, and because we fall under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, requires that all of our students have sort of these goals of employment, right? They fall into performance denominators, and it's all about going to post-secondary. It's all about going to work. So sometimes students are coming to us, and that's just not a goal that they have. Completely okay. We need to build partnerships within our community so that those students can get served and meet their goals and objectives. These are the things they're kind of focused on and kind of charged with doing. At the end of each calendar year, the presiding officer brings forward an official recommendation to the commission. And in that official recommendation to the commission, it's going to outline a couple of key things and recommendations that we should consider over the next year specifically. Back in, I think, January, our presiding officer, who was Donald Tracy, kind of brought forward some recommendations. Now, the reason why I'm going over all of this stuff with you guys is because I want you to kind of get a sense for what may be on the horizon and how we may be utilizing our funds in the future. What type of directives can you maybe anticipate coming out of TWC? And it all goes back to the recommendations from our advisory committee and also some of the strategic planning that we're doing. So the first recommendation was to expand access and build service support networks. Really, this is a charge for focusing on how we're marketing and we're promoting AEL, how we're branding the AEL services with our partners, and particularly to untapped populations, such as our military veterans, formerly incarcerated individuals, and individuals with disabilities. Do those specific populations know that we exist? And do they know what services that we have to offer? In this recommendation, it's also a broader awareness of AEL services and what supports that we have in terms of wraparound services and stability related to serving these sort of untapped populations. That's the first recommendation. The second recommendation made by our committee this past year was on enhancing career readiness skills. This is obviously something that's very important for employers and the workforce here in Texas. But really, they charged us with working more closely and collaborating with Texas employers on projects and partnerships that provide pre-employment and employability skills. Some of you are doing that in your classrooms right now. And if you're not, you can take this as sort of the pre-warning that, hey, this may be something in the future that we're going to be requesting specifically. The second bullet point on this one is related to digital literacy skills. We've been talking a lot, I think, about this lately, obviously with the pandemic. There's just a lot of focus on digital literacy. The reason for that is, COVID. Hey, as COVID happened, we all had to go remote, and all of a sudden it was like, wow, we've never had to do this. We have to be very innovative, and we started to see some of the gaps in several different areas of our service delivery in relation to moving those courses and that coursework to a more online environment. This enhancing career readiness specifically has to do with digital literacy skills that really is the use of broadband networks, the ability to effectively meet with employers through the use of different types of operating systems and software applications. This one is specifically for our AEL students, meaning do they know how to apply for jobs online? Do they know how to conduct, an online interview? Do they really have what they need in terms of these digital literacy skills to be ever present in the growing number of workforce jobs that are going to be largely handled remote in terms of the application process, the interview process, and the hiring process? The last one is funding that supports the pre-certificate skills development for our AEL's integrated education and training programs, and also our internationally trained professionals, which is basically developing a pre-certificate skill that says, hey, this individual is in a program and these are the things that they're kind of working on. And you're providing that individual with something that maybe they could go out and get a job and be recognized by an employer as being in a quality program, essentially, that they're moving towards something. We have a third recommendation from our advisory committee that has to do with engaging special populations. And this one specifically is how we are currently working with individuals who are re-entering into our communities after incarceration. And it also charged sort of the Texas Workforce Commission with forming a tri-agency initiative with Health and Human Services and the Texas Department of Criminal Justice to develop some coordinated strategies for how to serve that specific population that may include things related to supportive services that we could be offering them. Identifying and engaging second chance employers. So these are employers that take into account that someone's may have a criminal record or a background issue, but they're willing to kind of hire that individual on a second chance. Developing and delivering technical assistance and human resource management training to employers, not just to our customers and our students, but to employers, so that they feel more comfortable with hiring formerly incarcerated individuals, or now we call those justice involved individuals. So those are the kind of three core recommendations, but then at the end, they also provided 2 additional recommendations. And the 2 additional recommendations are really to develop and deploy an AEL learning platform that is culturally relevant and targeted towards the specific needs of adult learners. And the second one is to provide digital literacy training and technical support to AEL instructors who teach in online environments. This is one we've already began to pilot through our Distance Education Professional Development Center and the call center that we've been working on. Texas A&M is out there. This is already kind of underway. So, when they made this recommendation, I was like, oh, great, we're getting ready to start this call center. And this really is a solution and sort of aligned to this specific recommendation here. So what does that really mean for local programs? So what I think it would mean for you guys in terms of on the horizon is the development of statewide branding. One thing that we don't have here in Texas is sort of a statewide top-down branding. And it's been something that's come up several times through several recommendations of our advisory committee members, which is essentially we have about upwards of 90 providers here in Texas, but each of them may have their own name for their program. So if I'm a student here in Texas and I'm moving from Dallas to Houston or from Houston to South Texas, how do we brand and how do we have some more coordinated effort with how we're marketing our program on a statewide scale? That's really what they're talking about. So I think in the future, you may see some development of statewide branding. You're definitely going to see more social media campaigns coming out from TWC, more direct referrals from the Workforce Board and other stakeholder partners. We've been working, particularly in the last year and a half, to go to our workforce policy and technical assistance folks and say, hey, we're here. These are the services that we offer. please send us your referrals. We'd love to support and be more direct, have more warm handoffs from our board and other stakeholders in our communities. So trying to get the word out there. What else does it mean for you? I think it means more digital literacy and skill building opportunities for programs and students. So you may see a push for more local innovation like laptop loaner programs or other device and broadband services to keep students learning and keep them connected, because that's just the new way of the world. And we have to make sure that we're being very responsive to meeting the students' needs. And the last one I'll kind of point out here is potential policy updates or more directives on targeted coordination with Windham School District. Windham School District is the school district that serves inside the walls at the state prisons here in Texas. Every year they get an appropriation from the state legislature to continue to provide high school equivalency coursework inside the walls for incarcerated individuals. And we want to see more connectivity with individuals that may be coming out of those state prisons that now have obtained their high school diploma or may still be working on their high school equivalency. And how are AEL getting connected with those individuals? Say, hey, you can come finish that credential with us. We're here, we provide services. Because when you have individuals that have been working towards something while they are incarcerated and are unable to complete that, because the release dates are a little weird. It's like, yeah, you know, it's coming, but it's 6 months from now, and then boom, it can be tomorrow. It's very strange sometimes how those things work. And so you do have individuals that are coming out post-release that are so close to meeting that equivalency or are so close to getting that career and technical education and training on the inside. So we want to be able to be a partner for those individuals so that we can help to better support those post-release services and reconnecting those justice-involved individuals to education, post-secondary education, and employment, right? So you may see some more policy, technical assistance, guidance, webinars like this on some of these things once they start to kind of gain some legs here at the state level. I want to talk a little bit about our AEL strategic plan. Every 5 years, we're required to do a new strategic plan. And every 2 years, we are required to report on the progress of our strategic plan to the governor and to the commission. Currently, we are under a strategic plan that is scheduled to take us all the way to 2026. Now you think, man, 2026, that's, no, I can tell you it'll go by in a blink. So when I go over some of this stuff, I want to kind of get you familiar with how the plan flows and then provide you so that when you go and look at the plan, which I think is very simple, we really simplified it this time around so that you could easily go in there. You can pick out what are the goals that the state is saying, these are goals. What are those objectives? And then the action items are the meat. That's the stuff that, we're trying to implement. The real kind of questions I think that I always get is, well, what is it? What's a strategic plan, right? What does it mean to you guys in the field? And how can it help with local decisions and instruction? So let's dig into it. The first thing I would say is, it's not just about putting some words on paper. That would probably be pretty easy to do. I think we've got a couple of really good writers up here, even in my department, but that's not really what it's for. Before we can really begin the actual plan, we have to be clear about what is our mission and what is our vision. And the mission is how we define our business purpose, right? How are we defining the purpose of the business that we do every single day? The vision is how we describe what we want to achieve. And then the plan is sort of how you outline it, right? How do you get from point A to point B? And how are you going to achieve those goals? So currently, our mission statement is to promote and support a responsive and accountable system that creates value and supports local solutions to addressing the educational and workforce development needs of AEL students, businesses, and community stakeholders. That's a lot. It may even be a run-on sentence for you grammar folks out there, but that's the mission statement. And then if we go and we look at our vision statement, which is to deliver education workforce, and post-secondary education and training outcomes for students through innovative service delivery and partnerships that result in statewide alignments, efficiencies, and accountabilities. So that's a pretty bold statement, and it's a pretty big task when you're really thinking about what is the vision of the funding coming out of the Texas Workforce Commission into local communities for AEL service delivery. So I want to talk about the goals. And then we'll kind of get into a little bit of a blueprint, and we'll go over some more specific objectives, because I want you guys to walk away today and have some sort of semblance of maybe what is coming down the pipeline and what are some of the things you're going to see us focusing on over the next 3 to 5 years. The strategic goals currently listed in the plan. So we have 4 kind of key goals that we have listed. The first is to increase workforce, secondary, and post-secondary education and training outcomes. Simple, right? We need to increase the number of outcomes we're getting for our customers and for our students. The second is we need to address demand for our services with increased access to our services and coordination. The third is enhance our customer experience with increased coordination. That goes back to part 2, right? And what I was just talking about, which is we have a lot of need here in Texas for AEL type services and activities. We don't have enough money coming out to fund all of them. We have to be collaborative and we have to coordinate so that really we can enhance that customer's experience and we can get them to the right place that they need to be to fulfill their goals and objectives. And then the fourth is improve program effectiveness, always. I think that one will always be in there because we should always be just moving towards improving on the services that we provide and ultimately getting more individuals to the outcomes that they desire. So if you're looking at the strategic plan, this is kind of a blueprint of what it looks like. In the strategic plan, you have 4 big goals. Those are very broad, right? Those are like the 50,000 foot view. And then under each goal, you have objectives. Some objectives, some goals have 4 objectives. Some goals have 5 objectives. And then under each objective, you have action items. And that's where sort of the rubber, again, hits the road. So the goals are very broad, they're very high level, but they allow a lot of space in order to really open up and define some objectives that are going to align to that goal. And then action items, that's the things that are on me and on you guys and on everyone that's working with and is funded through the program to kind of implement things to help meet those objectives. So in goal 1, we have increase outcomes. Well, what does that really mean, increase outcomes? We want to increase workforce, secondary, post-secondary education and training outcomes that support increases in education and work-related outcomes through enhanced delivery and service integration. That is a big goal, right? Again, 50,000 foot view. If we look at objective 2 under that first goal, it is to increase the post-secondary education and training enrollments and to support more completions, right, in post-secondary education and training. Okay, a little less broad, but still pretty broad. And then we get down into the action items that are listed here. And I want you to really read through those and kind of think about what does that mean to you, right? How do you implement those things? So for action item 1, we're talking about promoting cross referrals of low-level developmental education students into adult education programs that support a broader initiative, which is the 60 by 30 strategic plan. Again, this is the coordinating board's strategic plan of creating a lower student debt. So we have individuals right now in Texas, they go into developmental ed because they lack the reading, writing, and math skills that they need to be successful in a college credit coursework. So they go to developmental ed, they're pulling down their Pell Grants, they're paying for those courses. They will leave oftentimes developmental ed with 0 college credit and a lot of student debt. So what we are saying is we need to work more closely with the coordinating board, and that our AEL providers should be working more closely with their community colleges and within their community colleges to say, hey, AEL can help those individuals with their reading, writing, and math so that they can pass whatever exams that they need so that they can be on level and in college credit classes. Or perhaps not a college level class. Maybe there's another option for the students, but we're still here to kind of support that reading, writing, and math component. If you look at action item 2, which is really for our tri-agency partnership so that we can share and communicate policies on the portability of credits across institutions of higher education. So that's something that's really on TWC, the Texas Education Agency, and the Texas Coordinating Board to come together and say, hey, we need to create more flexible pathways for our customers to be able to transport their credits across college and institutes of higher education across Texas. How do we do that? How do we tackle that? The third item you'll see here under this specific objective is to provide enhanced career and college navigation assistance. And we're already doing that. And we've been doing that with the career navigators for the last several years, but that's sort of where some of this comes from, right? Is because we're saying this is a strategy that we need. This is something that's going to help to support increasing the post-secondary education training enrollments and support the completions of our customers. They need somebody that's going to be there that they can go to, and it's going to help them navigate through all of the paperwork and all of the things that are necessary. So that's an action item, and we've been doing that. Action item 4, continue to promote development of alternate options for entry into post-secondary education or training programs for students who have not yet completed high school. And what this is really talking about is promoting the ability to benefit model for all of you colleges out there that are AEL providers and grantees to really promote this ability to benefit model. Those are the types of action items we kind of see and have on our plate to say, we need to do more of this, or we need to do this. And how those really get implemented at the local level, it could be different things. It's not always the same response in terms of from TWC to our local providers. It's not always the same response. So for instance, if we're looking at that goal, objective 2, and the first action item that I read off was to promote cross referrals of low-level developmental education students into AEL programs, right? You may see this in terms of action items that we do from TWC as a collaboration with the coordinating board to create policies and promote concepts that support the referral of those DE students to AEL. You may see this in conversations that are coming out from the coordinating board side of the house that says, hey, here's an opportunity. You guys have been a part of these conversations, I think, for the last several years, if you've been attending things that have been hosted by the coordinating board, because they've been talking about it and we've been talking about it to create that awareness, right? To create this concept and know that this is something that colleges can do and should do. The second thing is maybe TWC is going to fund something through a state leadership initiative, right? That helps to build models. Sometimes when we have brand new concepts out there and we're like, we've never done this before, but we want to be super innovative and we want to put it out there and we want to see what people can build. We will put out state leadership funding and say, hey, help us build this model. A lot of our state leadership initiatives come from this place. And then the last one, you may see this come out in terms of incentives for our AEL programs to do more because we want to incentivize it. And that sometimes is a performance-based funding measure. It sometimes is a performance or quality improvement award that we have every year, but we're putting a little incentive out there because we want to kind of change or influence what's happening at the local level. So those are just some of the things you may see. Now, in terms of goal 2 that we have, which is really addressing the demand with increased access. And I want to look at the objective 3 under that goal. If you're following along the plan online, if you look at objective 3 under that goal, I want to point out 2 specific action items. The second one is implementing technical assistance and support for work-based initiatives between AEL providers and employers. Building capacity for these workplace models. That is an action item that is currently in our strategic plan. The action item 4, which is encouraging AEL partnerships with employers, right, to hire adult learners with additional barriers to employment. So this may be, again, the second chance employers who hire formerly incarcerated individuals. We call them justice involved individuals. Really, we are charging ourselves with helping employers understand the value of hiring individuals that may have a background. So you see these types of action items listed out there, but when you're really thinking about TWC and how we're doing, what actions we're taking to meet that goal, I wanted to bring up a couple of things. And hopefully this helps to kind of connect the dots, because it's not always going to be just us coming out and saying, well, this is a new policy and you guys are required to do it, right? Sometimes it comes out in the form of opportunities. So one of the things that we've done, particularly to meet that second action item, is we put out a $1.2 million employer engagement RFA. And it really provides the AEL current providers can apply for these funds that are going to support more work-based learning, more work-based literacy models, and really working with those employers, because that's what we've charged ourselves with doing in the strategic plan. We've also done a $750,000 career pathway professional development center, and that's going to focus on those specific professional development needs that we have for our instructors, and provide technical assistance to our providers on things such as assist with meeting the second goal in our plan, which is the access related goal. You may see things coming out from us that maybe it's just creating a higher cost per for students for workplace literacy models, or really to promote those quality services to employers. That may be something that we're doing. But again, the backdrop of that, or sort of the back thought of that, is how do we meet some of these objectives as we've listed them out in the strategic plan? Because that is meant to be a blueprint for the things that we know we need in Texas, and how our AEL providers and how the funding for that can help to support those sort of larger kind of lofty goals that we have. I wanted to share with you guys some of the achievements. So again, every strategic plan, we kind of put these goals in there, and then we put these action items in there. And what the overall goal is, well, are we achieving these things, right? So at the end of every 5 years, we want to look back and we want to say, what did we achieve? You know, what were some of the things we could pinpoint? So I just wanted to take the first strategy in our old plan. Now, this is based off of our old plan. A couple of things that we did accomplish, because I think it's important to recognize that. For strategy, and these are all for the very first strategy in the old plan. So let's talk about a couple of key accomplishments. We had nearly 30% of all of our AEL participants engaged in distance learning. When we first started, we had very low numbers of individuals engaged in distance learning. So what did we do? We put out professional development. We put out technical assistance that said, hey, hybrid learning is the way to go. There's proven strategy here. People and students that engage in hybrid learning models oftentimes have quicker and better gains related to their reading, writing, math, and language components. So it's a good idea. Do it. So we had a nearly 30% of all of our participants that were engaged. And this was at the end of 2019, I think. The second one was since December of 2018. So from December of 2018 through June of 2020, we trained over 1,700 administrators, instructors, and staff members on implementing those distance learning. So if you're going to come up with a strategy and you're going to put in your strategic plan and say, hey, we want more hybrid learning, we want more synchronous, asynchronous hybrid learning, you have to do those actionable items, which is you got to train people, right? You got to make people comfortable with the software and the applications and how to do this. And so that was something that we met, and that was a big achievement, because now, guys, if we were to look at this year, which I get it, COVID, it's kind of like, necessity at this point, but we're up to like 45% here in Texas of the number of individuals that are accessing these additional distance education coursework. The third one is we've invested $12 million in Accelerate Texas, which is really focused on taking individuals who are lower basic skilled and putting them into workforce training. right? So we spent $12 million here in Texas, and we've trained over 3,500 individuals. And this was at the end of 2020. We have another round right now. So that number will continue to increase. 87% of students have shown successful gains in literacy and math. That's awesome, right? AL leads and alternatives to school debt programs. So if you look at the individual programs and across the country who are using their AEL funds to support ability to benefit, we're one of the leaders in that. We get asked all the time, hey, can you come say how you're doing this? And I know many of you probably do out there that are actually putting the work in and working with your colleges to implement this with an AEL service model. So those are some of the, achievements that we're looking at. When we're thinking about on the horizon, I would just say a couple of things. We're probably going to see more focus on serving underserved populations. So there's going to be your justice involved, adult learners with disabilities, or internationally trained professionals. I think we're going to see some statewide branding and coordination. That's a big ticket item for me this year. It's something I'm really focused on, and I really want to see happen for all of our programs across the state. Bridge to college and employment, really putting some effort into how we can support students that may be dropping out of secondary education, and from the beginning of that time, find an alternative through us to reconnect to post-secondary. Because as you know, the more someone waits in the wings, once they have made the commitment and they are no longer going to complete their secondary diploma, the longer it takes them to get back into education, the harder it is. So if there's an opportunity for us to make some bridge connections for those individuals, I want to do that. I also want to, see more pre-apprenticeship opportunities for people that want to go into demand industries that may not be ready. Maybe they don't have their high school diploma or an equivalent, and maybe that's a requirement of that registered apprenticeship program. I want to be able to make more bridges and connectivities to those registered apprenticeship programs, and we can support that, I think, in a big way. And the last two I put on here, one is the program evaluation and the research piece. Program evaluation and research, we haven't done a big program evaluation piece in a long time. And I feel like it's probably time for us to get out there and kind of say, hey, how are we actually doing out here when we have some sort of key metrics? And then, of course, digital literacy and resiliency. That's a big one. It's on everybody's mind. So probably need to do something related to that. I want you to look at the strategic plan that we have right now from 21 to 26. And I want you to pick out a goal and an objective that really speaks to you. And then what is an action item or two you feel would help support the achievement of the goal? And it's not the action items maybe necessarily in the plan currently, but what do you really see? Is there a policy change that needs to happen? Is there a funding need? Do you need some incentives from the state? I hope you got some good information out of today's session. And if you want to, again, reach out to me, just let me know. So thanks everybody for joining me. I appreciate everything that y'all do continuously, and keep up the job well done out there.
We hope you enjoyed this pre-recorded webinar. After you have passed the final test with a score of 80% or greater and have received your certificate of completion, please take a few moments to complete the course evaluation. Participant feedback helps Train PD at TCall continue to provide high-quality professional development. To leave a course feedback, please go to the completed portion of your transcript. To do this, hover over the My Learning tab and select View Your Transcript. Click on the drop-down arrow next to the word Active and select Completed. Then, click Evaluate in the drop-down menu next to the course you just completed. Please note that your feedback is greatly appreciated.